I'm Richard Porter.
I'm Johnny Smith.
And this is Smith and Sniff, a podcast in which two friends talk about cars and many other things.
You know Stephen King's face?
Stephen King's face?
Yeah. You know Stephen King's got a very, very strange-looking face. We're talking, obviously, we're talking the horror writer guy.
Yes. He's one of those people who is very much not a Steve, isn't he?
I also worry about his brain, if I'm honest, but that's almost another story. I just worry what the hell's going on in there.
Well, yeah, no, there's some of it. Also, I'm fascinated by one of his writing techniques is essentially just to sort of set off and see where he goes, which I think is you have to have, I think, quite a powerful brain to be able to do that and not just end up steaming down a dead end or writing reams of drivel that doesn't really go anywhere. I think if you're doing a novel, surely you need to sort of set out a framework. And I'm sure in his head he has got that, but he doesn't. I gather he has written a book about writing, which I'm ashamed to say I've never read, but I think he is, or certainly used to be, a kind of set off and see where it takes him kind of merchant. And I don't know whether that's because he was also famously on enormous quantities of cocaine, or whether that's just his technique.
Well, I mean, I'd love to read that book about how to write by Stephen King, but I'm more interested in the fact that his wife nearly divorced him because he wouldn't stop listening to Mambo No. 5.
Oh, yes! I forgot about this.
It still absolutely cripples me with laughter because it's the last song I'd expect like the most famous horror writer of all time to sing.
Yeah.
Unless he's going to weave it into a horror story, which will then tarnish it forever. Not that it's the best song ever, but by Lou Bega.
Lou Bega, yeah. Well, it sounds like he should be called Lou Vega, but he's got a terrible cold.
It's true, isn't it? I always thought he was Lou Vega.
Lou Bega. What? Lou Bega? Lou Bega! With Bega!
Yeah, he's a toilet baker. That's what he is.
But this is, to explain, for listeners who don't know this is a genuine story, isn't it? Stephen King is on record as saying that he became obsessed with Mambo No. 5 and just listened to it endlessly until his wife almost left him.
It's just the greatest story because from memory, because I remember when this came out in the late 90s, I'm going to say, he just lists loads of women's names in the song about what he likes doing with those ladies, like a little bit of Monica in my life, a little bit of Tina just for fun, a little bit of Sandra's what I need, etc., etc., etc. But just
I found the quote here.
Sorry, this is not correlated at all. I'm so sorry.
An interview with Rolling Stone magazine, they asked him, "Is it true your wife threatened to divorce you over that record?" "Oh yeah, big time," said King. "My wife threatened to divorce me. I played that a lot. I had the dance mix," he continued. "I loved those extended play things, and I played both sides of it, and one of them was just a total instrumental. And I played that thing until my wife just said, 'One more time, and I'm going to fucking leave you.'" And there's a picture of him, and you're right, his face is...
Okay,
what's going on there?
Can we go back to what my original observation was going to be? I've written down here, because I'm convinced of this, Stephen King's face is like a US spec bumper version of a European face. So, like when they ruined the Mercedes SL in the 80s by putting the sort of like big extended plinth bumpers on the car for the US market. Well, I think Stephen King's face is like an American spec bumper version of a European person's face. That's what I'm convinced about.
I'm looking at this picture and I can't figure out what's going on. I don't want to speak ill of Stephen King and suggest that he's had work done, because I don't think it's that.
No, I don't think he's had any work.
The problem is he's got great hair. He's got really thick and full head of hair, and it's a bit kind of camtail. It's not an Edmonds. It's almost a bit Gordon Murray because it's over the ears. It's sort of he's got the flared arches over the ears.
Okay. So
and there's a bit of a cam at the back.
Sportsman racer arch covers.
Yes, they're like a Mark I Escort rally car. Those bubble arches.
The bubble arches, the follicular bubble
arch
arches.
hair. But his hair, although it's grey, is thick and luxurious and luxuriant, don't I? And it's a younger person's hair.
He's got
and
younger.
It doesn't
person's
match his
hair.
face,
right?
Because he's in his mid-70s and he's looking very well on it.
Well, considering he's had tons of Boutros Ghali in his life, it doesn't.
Yes, considering that he did so much Chang in the 70s that he can't remember writing a whole movie and directing it. I think
he can't remember writing or directing.
Hang on, we talk about this on the podcast before that he.
I want to say we did. I think at that point, I was laughing too hard.
So here we go. Well, there's an article here that says Stephen King has written over 60 novels to date, but there's one classic book he can't remember writing due to a dark chapter in his life.
Well, and it's a classic. It actually sold well.
Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, gosh. Well, the film...
That's the movie.
He wrote that when he was off his wig.
Yeah. It says here, it's well known that King was high on cocaine for most of Maximum Overdrive's production, and many, including King himself, feel that fact contributed to just how bad the movie turned out.
I remember watching that during a sleepover in like the very early 90s, or it might have been the late 80s. Probably right at the end of primary school for me, and I remember it being quite an exciting film, but then I was probably 11, so that's fine. Maximum Overdrive, 1986. Emilio Estevez, isn't it? What?
Ages ago on Twitter, someone wrote this thing that I can't now disassociate with Emilio Estevez, where someone went, I'm hoping to get hold of Emilio Estevez. Does anyone have his emailio address to
Stop it. That's a dad joke. That is a dad.
It is a dad joke, but it's just I can only hear emailio address to when I hear his name. So I was going to say, because this occurred to me that it was the first thing I thought of when I woke up the other morning, weirdly, and I don't know why, that people who, like Stephen King is not Steve King, doesn't work.
No.
Dave Attenborough doesn't work. Steve Fry, no.
No.
Unless you're Mark and Lard, Dave Bowie doesn't work either. And I suddenly realised, there's another one, is Michael Knight. It doesn't work if you call him Mike Knight. It sounds stupid.
Well, you've got Mike, haven't you got Mike the Knight, who's an idiotic cartoon character for children?
Oh, yes.
I used to watch him when I was sleep deprived. I used to think he was a complete prick. But it's only because he just got it wrong all the time and wouldn't learn and wouldn't listen. And when you've had, 12 hours sleep over 12 days, it starts to grind a little. Yeah, and also, there's that song. I remember this because also it's the same time when my children were really young. There's that Justin Timberlake song called something like Bring Back the Night or I Love the Night or something. But I used to think he was just shouting, I'm Mike the Night. So every time Mike the Night came on, I would try and sing the Justin Timberlake song going, I'm Mike the Night. Da, 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 da. And my kids would just look at me like, none of that's related. I don't understand. Dad, you're an idiot.
Good.
So, Mike the Night. Could I bring up some local news from my area? There's breaking news last night.
Yeah.
There was a ram raid. I've just woken up to some chat on WhatsApp and local news. Yeah, there was a ram raid. There was a
ram raid of what?
3 roads away from where I live. There was a ram raid of a bargain booze shop which had a cash point in the front. And let's just say that the shop doesn't have a front anymore. There's no front to the shop.
I think a more crucial question is, what car did they use?
Well, this is the thing. Nobody seems to have heard it, which is bizarre because, and this is why I want to investigate further. Do you remember the Shogun Pinin that was abandoned on some old guy's front garden who looks like an extremely elderly Popeye? Do you remember I told you about him?
Yeah.
Well, it's right opposite his house. So octogenarian Popeye guy with the pipe and the algal Pinin. Sounds like I'm speaking in code, but I'm not. He must have heard. He must have heard what's going on, and I'm gonna walk past there in a minute after this podcast and just see if I can do something, because there's police crime tape and everything.
Presumably they've yanked the car out of the shop front now.
Well, I don't know if the car went in and came back out again. It's such a mess in the pictures I've seen. I can't tell if there was a car in there or not.
Well, it might be a fun game though now, because you can walk past, and there must be bits of car.
There'll be bits
if it was a ram raid.
Unless
From
they
the
did it
bits
in
of car.
Yeah, I mean, we're fairly rural here. It could have been a telehandler. I mean, the sort of more...
Oh.
They sometimes go in with a telehandler and then they get away in a car which hasn't had any damage, if they're going to be quite pro and slick. But, of course, a telehandler at sort of 2 in.the morning is a bit of an odd sight, unless it's harvest
if you have
season.
to back up.
Yeah.
If you've got to reverse to position to get your angle... Were they after the cash machine then, rather than the bargain booze?
Well, the fact that the whole front of the shop... It was on the left-hand side of the front of the shop, but the whole of the front of the shop's gone. So I reckon they thought, we're going to do the cash machine, but because we've got to tear the whole shop out anyway, let's go for the top shelf of the booze and get some hardcore liquor while we're there. Because it's coming up for Christmas. And they've got families to entertain.
Exactly. I was about to say, this is the thing. It's like, you get the cash machine, I'm going to get 19 bottles of Baileys because Christmas is around the corner.
Exactly.
And maybe a couple of cheeky single malts if I've got any.
Yeah. Stick of famous grouse and I can't think of any other whiskies that are well known.
Bells.
Well,
one of those really huge bottles of Bells that goes on an Optic.
Oh, an Optic spec Bells, which has got the label upside down. Yeah, I love those.
Yes,
brilliant.
There's nothing classier than having an Optic spec Bells, but are just sitting on a shelf or on a tray in your house with the label the wrong way up. Did you get that from a pub? Might have done.
Yeah, who's saying? So yeah, I mean,
asking?
We've gone right back to the 90s overnight. I feel like I've time travelled.
I haven't heard about a ram raid happening for ages.
No. I'm quite excited about it. I mean, I feel sorry for the shop owner because they've trashed the shop and that's going to be stressful. And that was the same shop that I regularly see No Name Full Suspension guy outside now. The one who was sort of talking to the carrier bag of booze. Did I tell you about that bit?
No.
Well, he'd sleeved the carrier bag onto the bars and he was talking sternly to the bag when I was driving past really slowly because it's at the end. It's a T-junction, so I have to stop pretty much next to him when I'm there. And he was like properly instructing the bag, and I couldn't quite make out what he was saying because I didn't want to make eye contact. But I think he was telling the bag to not brake, don't brake.
Oh, right.
Like behave because I've got a few cans in there. And you know what it's like? You know when you drop a can right on the corner and then there's that huge rooster tail of beer.
Are you sure he was talking to the bag and he wasn't just on the phone with the headphones in or something?
Oh, actually, I don't know. That's a good...
Because I saw a woman the other day and I thought she was talking to a post box and I was a bit like, oh gosh, should I tell someone about this? But no, she was just on the phone, but I couldn't see her headphones because she had hair over her ears. Yeah, well, this is the modern problem. It's happening more and more. Well, at least they're using headphones rather than just talking into their phone whilst holding it about a foot away from their face like some twat on The Apprentice.
Well, I don't understand.
Because I don't know why people do that.
That's not the point
of
a phone.
I can hear your phone call.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's usually, like as we said before, it's usually at international airports in the gents' toilets that happens, which I don't understand. But anyway. Oh, and so the second piece of local news. So 90 spec ram raiding overnight. 2. Do you remember many podcasts ago we talked about sort of his and hers same vehicles being owned? And lots of
well, it came up again last week, didn't it? Because I was mentioning our old neighbours with twin Seat Ibithas. It's a recurring theme. And in fact, since you mentioned this, a listener called David Wall got in touch with a very, very thorough message about his neighbourhood's double car efforts.
Oh, brilliant.
He's listed them, and then he's attached a PDF labelled Bog Off, as in buy one, get one free. And in the PDF, he has pasted pictures of the cars that he's listed.
Oh, wow. He's an investigative
It is. It's very.
guy.
I wonder if David doesn't say, but I wonder. He's in Surrey. I know that, but he doesn't say if he is for perhaps Anne Police or
D Wall PI.
Yes, exactly. It's quite a good police name.
It is.
That's Detective Wall to you. Yeah, but he says also these snaps were taken on just one dog walk around my neighbourhood. Two Hyundai i20s, two Hyundai Tucsons, two BMW 3 Series. Now, David, I'm going to pick you up on this because from the pictures, one of those is actually a 5 Series.
Oh, gosh.
Two Honda Civics, brackets recently joined by a third. Two Hyundais, which he's realised are two different models, and two Dacia Sanderos with a bonus stepway.
Oh, amazing. Well,
That's in one neighbourhood on one dog walk. I mean, that is fertile pickings for the two of the same car genre.
There must be something in the water, surely, that just makes you wake up and go, I'm going to have the same cars.
Yeah.
We're all going to have the same cars as in our household. Well, this somewhat, it's great, David. I love this. It somewhat cheapens my comment, only because night before last, I drove past the double Suzuki Wagon-R household. Okay.
Oh, yes.
And what have I discovered, Rich?
Don't tell me one of the Wagon-Rs is actually a Vauxhall Agila.
That's a good answer. But no, there's now 3 of them. It's a triple.
Oh, my God.
It's a triple Wagon-R household. Triple.
Are they hoarding now?
I think they're stockpiling, but then they're all on the road.
Parts car?
Well, it's on street parked, so whether they've just procured it and it's about to run out of mott, and they're like, we'll take some bits off in a minute, and then we'll bail it over the weekend. They might have a Wagon-R dismantling party, like a sort of, they'll drag it onto the front lawn, and have like a family barbecue, and then just quickly put it on Facebook Marketplace and just say, come and get it, everything's a quid.
Come and pick bits off the wagon.
I'd quite like that, like a car braking barbecue. Quite like it.
Yeah.
Also, especially because if the car's not sacred, you can teach the kids how to remove stuff. So you say the kids are all running around like they might at a family barbie. Just say, get the ratchet spanners out. I'll show you how to take a door off. Yeah, okay. So here's how you take a Wagon-R door off. Don't drop it on your feet. Make sure you take up the slack when it's getting loose. And don't wrench the wires if you want to reuse the wires for the speakers and all the electric windows and all that vajazzle. Yeah, I just think it could be quite wholesome. That's happened. And then the third bit of home news is, and I'm still trying to decide if this is interesting or not, so please be honest. I had my eyes tested, and I've got to have glasses for driving work, mostly nighttime driving work.
Yeah,
but certainly kind of like dusk and prolonged drive work, glasses are now needed. So that moment's come. I used to wear glasses. I was short-sighted for many years, and then I had laser eye treatment, and that's been good to me for 12 years. But but it's creeping back in now, Rich. So I had to do that weird decision thing of like so many different styles of specs to choose from.
Oh my God!
And I'm riddled with worry. Like, I'm a guy in his mid-40s. Am I going to look like a try-hard? Am I going to look like too much of a Polestar driver? What should I do? which look should I go for?
What do you mean by a Polestar driver? Do you mean sort of?
Well, I guess it's the modern architect look. I mean, like, Polestar drivers do not wear colourful clothes. I'm going to say that they are monochrome people.
Monochromatic people. Yes, I could see that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the sort of it's the nearest to a Saab, I think, that's out there, unless anyone can provide a better alternative. But I think Polestar 2, you look at that and go, that's kind of a Saaby type of deal there. So I had to make a decision. It was really hard. But I chose some Danish titanium items
now you've just gone full Polestar, surely. Danish titanium items. Jeez.
But I have to say, they've got colour in them. They've got vivid colour in them. So I'm trying to traverse sort of like being interesting but not too wild. But also, I looked on the frames. They're made in Japan, so they're Danish company.
Danish titanium Japanese.
They are.
This is very. I mean, this is almost like a Polestar itself.
It is
where you
almost.
go, it's Swedish, but actually some of them are engineered in Britain and made in China, and it's all very sort of pan global.
That's what I'm thinking. And when they were specking up the lenses in the the invoice, I don't know what it is, the receipt, I noticed the lenses are made by Seiko. So I was like, okay, so
what? Really?
yeah,
That's cool.
I mean, bugger me, glasses have got expensive. I mean,
Yes.
I haven't bought glasses in a long time, and they are titanium, so I didn't buy like cheap glasses. I bought ones that are very strong and will last, etc., etc. But at the same time, was a bit worried about the amount of cash I just dropped on some specs.
Are these being made up for you now, or have you got them?
Yeah, no, I get them. In fact, by the time you listeners listen to this podcast, I will have them. So my night driving will be exquisite. I hope.
Well, you have to send a picture we can put on the Patreon. And frankly, I'd like to see as well what expensive Dano-Japanese titanium glasses look like these days. But it's difficult, isn't it? I mean, I think if you actually try to work out the amount of my life that I've spent trying to choose glasses, it's up there with the amount of time that I've spent trying to choose greetings cards. It's just
it's a difficult
thing. Caught in a loop of endless indecision, and you can't really ask the people in the shop because they don't ultimately give a shit.
Well, certainly in a card shop, I don't know if they give a shit, but
No, I wasn't suggesting that you just... Excuse me. Let me tell you a little bit about the person whose birthday is. Please stop bothering me, sir. This is W.H. Smith.
Although, if they do give a shit about card choosing, I respect that a lot, because you can go into a car dealership now and people selling you an actual car, which might be the biggest decision of somebody's life in terms of money. And I've heard so many awful stories of dealers just not giving a flying toss and just not providing a service where you should feel special. Even if you're buying the cheapest base model car brand new, for you it could be a big deal, and you deserve decent treatment for that. I mean, I've got a little bit consumer on all of a sudden, but I do worry. I mean, the glasses thing, I have my son with me who's quite decisive, and he's also got a good eye for detail. So he ultimately helped me shortlist the glasses. There were two that I could have gone for, but I wasn't feeling flush enough to spend like 1,500 quid on two pairs of glasses, so I didn't. But the reward for helping me sit through my eye test and stuff was I took Wes to see Uncle Greg in his workshop, and good old Uncle Greg always knows how to please. He introduced Wesson to the lathe and the pillar drill, and I have to say it's really warmed my cockles because he's properly engaged with all of the tools and the machines in the workshop, and he said, can we go back more often? Can we see Uncle Greg in his workshop more often? I said, yeah, absolutely, because it's a part of parenthood I don't think I'm great at, because I don't know how to use a lot of those tools.
Letting your children use a lathe. I mean,
and Uncle Greg's just
now you've put it like that.
It's just second nature. I mean, it's like me pouring cornflakes into a bowl. Uncle Greg can just whittle something up on the lathe, and the way he does it is just so second nature. It's great to watch.
In fairness, your brother doesn't have one of Britain's most popular YouTube channels about cars, so it's horses for courses.
That's true, although don't say that, because he might just turn his hand to it and bloody do it.
Greg's lathing.
He would be.
The lathe brake show, just to piss you off.
Oh, you've just... Because lathes do have brakes as well.
I suppose they do,
You can stop them suddenly. You can. The lathe... You've gone and done the ending of this podcast early. You've peaked.
Oh, shit, yeah. Oh, fuck, I haven't thought of one of those.
Well,
there we go.
Just say it again in half an hour. No one will know.
Yeah.
So there we go.
We've never done one about lathes. Okay, yes, go on, sorry.
So that's it. Yeah, so he made some great stuff, and he mended, or he identified a little problem with Wesson's drift trike, made a little packing, a packing piece for the rear axle. So there was a bit of lateral movement in one of the the spindles on the in-hub motors. It's all got geeky, but it was fun. It was really good fun, and just always good. Yeah, Greg just threw in a couple of inappropriate jokes mid-lathe, which I always quite like, over an exceptionally strong coffee.
You just reminded me, talking about glasses and choosing glasses, that my old flatmate Phil went to get some new glasses years ago, where they were doing the 2-for-1 offer.
Yeah,
and he spent, the usual a year or so in the shop trying to decide on his main glasses, and he's like, finally went, right, these, okay. And they went, what about your second ones? And he's like, oh god,
oh gosh.
So he thought, I better get a different pair. I don't just get two of the same. But he couldn't be bothered at that point. And they had these absolutely enormous, like sort of 70s Eric Morecambe style glasses, which subsequently you possibly could have got away with as being quite ironically cool, but at the time,
not.
That wasn't really a thing.
Yeah.
They just thought you'd mugged someone's granddad. And he just went, I'll have these. And they went, oh, okay. Yeah. And they made them up for him. And then he got them, and he showed us when he got back. He went, look, I've got these comedy ones as well, because I insisted I'd have a second pair for free. We're like, oh, that's really good. Yeah, funny. Yeah. Almost immediately then broke his main glasses.
No, he
and
didn't.
Had to wear the Eric Morecambe ones.
No, he didn't. Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Second only to another friend of mine who's very short-sighted, wears glasses, went on holiday with some mates to the US, lost his glasses, but that's okay. He's got a spare pair.
Oh, gosh.
Wearing the spare pair, broke the spare pair, and all he's got then are his prescription sunglasses.
Oh, my God.
And that's fine in the daytime, but he found himself in a nightclub in New York in sunglasses.
No! Yeah. Really?
Yeah. Sort of having to try and pretend he's just being really cool, but actually looking like a bit of a knob.
Well, he could have looked like a bit of an Andy A-hole kind of character, couldn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one of the loft apartments. I do art, and I don't come out very often.
Yeah, it's got a lot of exposed brick. Yeah,
normally the parties come to me, but tonight I decided to go out. Do you know, that's really funny that you said that, because 20 years ago I went on a massive lads' weekend to Scotland with a couple of motoring journalists who have gone on to even bigger and better things, and several of them, but I'm not going to name any names. And we went to a couple of different cities. And I remember this because we were driving the then just launched autobiography Range Rover, and it was in triple white. It was the worst spec I've ever seen. It had wool over rugs on the floor that were white. And we were driving around in this thing looking like a cluster of absolute bells. And we all had, for some reason, I'd gone to Sports Direct the day before to buy some fancy dress stuff just for a laugh. And I bought a load of England football caps, but they were all reduced to something like 60 pence. And so they all had huge labels on them, which said 60 pence on them. So we all wore them, but with the labels still dangling on the back that said 60 pence. We thought that was funny.
Nice.
Anyway, reason why I'm telling you this, I carried around with me various bad glasses just for fun on these weekends. It's the sort of thing I did in my 20s. And there was this pair of unbelievable 60s women's sunglasses that we used to put on and pull up at the lights and then look at people next to us and see what response we got. Well, one of my friends took a shine to these. He just said, I actually quite like these, I'll just wear them. And he looked ridiculous in them, but he just wore them with conviction all day and all night for 3 days. Well, we went out clubbing in Aberdeen and he wore these glasses. Well, do you know what happened?
I'm going to guess.
He got accosted by an attractive lady.
Yes.
And ended up going back to her house for some coffee. And the next morning we had lots of missed calls because he was like, where are you? I don't know where I am. I need you to come and get me. It had been a big night. We went and fetched him, and he came out wearing the women's glasses still. We were like, please don't tell me you... And he went, yes, I did. I've not taken them off all night. So sure enough, and actually made love to a beautiful woman wearing women's sunglasses in Scotland at night, which still tickles
Like
me.
a piece
to
of
this
information
day.
that never ends.
I just absolutely love that, and it will. I think
Wow.
the glasses are still somewhere. I think they survived, but yeah. So
The power of comedy sunglasses. That's much better than I had a sort of similar experience, but not in that I was in a nightclub in Birmingham at a party event thing where you had to wear red.
Okay.
And I didn't have anything red. So in haste, I went to a charity shop and they had a red shirt. So I just bought it for like £3 or something.
please tell me
And-
it was too short for you.
I was I sort of, then I was like, oh God, yeah, I don't know if it's the same day or the day before, but it was all a bit frantic. And then I was like, right, I've got to get this thing. Pulled on the red shirt, and it was immediate. Apparently, it didn't really fit. And then I went to try and button it up, and I was like, "What the fuck's wrong with this button? The wrong way around? Oh God, this is a blouse. It's a lady's blouse. That's why the buttons are the wrong way around." But it was too late. I was like, "I've got to go." You know, it's
You've
like this
committed.
thing's starting soon.
You've committed.
So it was a very odd garment for me to wear because it was all the wrong shape, and it was a blouse, but it somehow drew the attentions of an attractive lady.
See,
I have, just for the record, I didn't go back to her house or do anything while wearing the blouse, but
No, but the
it
point
was the fact
is-
that I was like, never normally happens to me, and look at this, the power of a blouse.
I think the moral to the story is sometimes, especially when we're younger and we're maybe a little bit more impressionable, we care so much about what we look like on a big night out. But actually, if you just go for it and just enjoy and really embrace the fancy dressness of a fancy dress occasion, you might reap the rewards. I'm going to say you will. And that's the end of my life advice, Johnny's life advice. Because
Johnny's thought for the day. I hate to talk about cars, but I feel like we ought to
you
just
probably
make
should.
an effort.
Yeah, I'm allowing
This is a
that.
complete change of subject, but it's just something that popped into my head the other day.
Okay.
I dropped our kids at school, and
Not a euphemism.
there's a parent does the school drop off in a current shape Octavia VRS
Yes.
hatchback, and I always look at it and go, yeah, that's got everything covered, hasn't it? Really, that's all you need.
Is that the one where it's just a hatch, or was it a saloon and a hatch, or am I getting mixed up with the Superb, the original?
That's the Superb, the old Superb.
absolutely-
No, this is just a hatch, but it's quite a rakish hatch these days.
Yeah, I worship the separate hatch and saloon thing.
I think if you made that Octavia VRS the estate, then you really have got everything covered. Because then my dog can come along as well. And I started thinking, is that what I need in my life? I need an Octavia VRS. And I had a little look just out of interest. And just over £300 a month, you can lease one. I thought,
Really?
I think that's quite good value considering that. And I looked at it and I was like, I was even to the point where I went down the equipment list and went, right, okay, so, and it's got everything you need.
I bet it's got more than you need.
Well, it has really, yeah, because it's got some of those, tricksy headlights and stuff. You just go, I'm really not sure. Don't need those, but nice stuff. Heated seats, wireless CarPlay, all the stuff that just makes your everyday life nicer. It's got that, and not to be a pedant about like leasing, but often you go, oh, that's an attractive price, and you go, oh yeah, but you want it with like better wheels and metallic paint, and those suddenly add to the cost. But no, it only comes with some very nice wheels on it, and you get metallic paint as standard. So I think the cheapest I found for a 3-year deal was £313.
Are you sponsored by Skoda today? Is there something you want to tell
I'm
me?
not,
Or
no.
Are you...
No.
Well, I have
No,
to.
I'm not. Some people may find that car deeply boring. I don't think I would ever have in my life, because if I showed it to my wife, she'd just be like,
No.
"Oh, what's that?" Because it doesn't, if you don't like estate cars.
Your wife doesn't, and one of my videographers, Matty, his wife really doesn't like estate cars. So every time he comes to me for car advice for what should we get for Emma or what shall I get for me as a family car, and I just immediately start reading off estates. He went, no, she won't do it. She won't do it. I said, well, then you're dead to me, Matty, You're dead to me.
Yeah, just afraid it's divorce time, Matty.
You're dead to me.
But I say that, that's the thing. My wife's logic, we've talked about this before, haven't we? Possibly not on the podcast, but her logic is always, there's such mom cars. And I'm like, look around you. Look at what all the inverted commas mom cars are these days on the school run. They're all SUVs. But,
exactly.
And it's like she mostly just drives around in a VW E-Up. It's not exactly a 1970 Dodge Challenger, is it? Is it kind of like, how cool do you think you are?
I think you should buy your wife a Hellcat as the family car. Just have it on a really short lease. Just do it for 6 months or something. It's just like a drawn out joke. You go, right, here we go. You've got something macho.
There you go.
Everyone will go, oh, that's the American lady that lives in Bath down the road. And she'll drive around in a fire-breathing monster. 2-door, obviously.
I could have asked, do you know Mike Fernie out of what's left of Drive Tribe?
Yeah.
He lives up the road from me, and he was driving around in a Charger Hellcat.
Yes.
For ages.
They've got one, either Richard Hammond's bought it or, somebody's bought it. I mean, those cars annoy the hell out of me anyway, but they're supposed to be good.
I think, well, that's just a name thing, isn't it? But I think that, I don't know, because it was from Germany. It was on German plates. I can't remember if they registered it in the UK. I might have gone back now, because I haven't seen it around for a while. I haven't spoken to Mike for a while. But, so I could have just asked Mike to
borrow it for a couple of days.
Borrow the Charger.
That would have been great.
Just to tell my wife that's our new car. I don't know how that would have gone.
I would have loved for you to have done that, just to have got her honest, like, well, you're driving this for the next 48 hours, please, just, here you go, take it away, put some miles on it. See what
I've got to tread carefully where cars are concerned with my wife at the moment, because I still haven't got the Panda back, and she started asking questions.
Oh no, the Pandademic. You're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. Well, it's just because, she's poured scorn on that car, and I was like, but it's good for little local trips and stuff like that. And here I am now doing local trips in mostly when she's not around, in the ups away in the bloody Range Rover, because the Panda is still at the garage and the clock is ticking, and it's the money clock, which is the worst of the clocks.
It is the worst
in terms of trying to justify a second car I don't really need. Anyway, well, we won't get too deep into that, because
you're a premium trim level stroker there, Rich. I would say that's.
Yeah, well, they're struggling to get the engine to turn over.
Oh, anyway, really? Oh gosh,
more
just
on that.
I don't want to go off air.
It's vexing me. The other thing, well, speaking of cars I don't need, for years and years, I always sort of looked from afar at Volvo 240s and sort of went, they just remind me of childhood, of sort of
sensible families.
People, sensible, slightly hearty families who always had 2 weeks in the Dordogne or something in the summer, and shopped at Habitat and stuff, and they always seemed, just going, something, I don't know, maybe a little bit smug about them, but also a bit boring.
Yes.
And in the course of wrapping up some final research and fact-checking for my next Boring Car Trivia book, I went into a bit of a deep dive on the Volvo 240.
Oh, here we go.
And I have a real craving for a Volvo 240 now. It's weird.
Well, I might be able to help you there.
No, don't help me with this. Tell me no, but why? Have you got a guy?
My good friend Simon Browse, who is working on my Chevrolet Impala, my never-ending story. He's got my Dodge at the moment. He's doing some fettling. And he drove it from my place down to his place, and left his car here. And it's one of his. He's got a few Volvos. He's got his lovely GLT estate.
Oh,
and it's in resell red, as he calls it. Because I said to him, "What do you mean resell red?" I said, "I don't like red cars." He said, "Red Volvo GLTs sell. They're the most desirable colour of the GLT." And I said, "Really? People want a red brick?" He went, yeah.
I suppose it does look quite good, because the GLT sort of goes some of the trim blacked in.
Yes, lots of black. Lots of black window surrounds and black bumpers, obviously.
And it does work with the red. It's quite period correct sort of jazziness.
And it's sat outside my orifice, and
Is it?
yeah, it is a good looking car.
Send me a picture.
Okay, I will do, and
Just
because
remind
that's the
me.
one to have, Rich.
I'm not going to buy a Volvo 240, but not right now. But I find myself with a renewed appreciation of them that I didn't have at the time, or
really.
really.
We've talked about this on previous pods, but I know that because that car's now got such a youth following with the drift culture and the sort of the ironic tag from Scandinavia, where all the young kids who used to see old people drive them, they've now got them and wound the boost up. And I like all that about it. And they are beautifully made cars. But I mean, like every time, and my brother did it last week when he came to the office, he looked at it and I saw him looking at it. I said, "It's not mine." He went, "Good." And I went, "Why?" I said, "Why? They're great." He goes, "Yes, but you'd never have one over a W123. They're just not as good." And he has a point. Every time I look at a 240, and it's the same era, isn't it? Basically, you could have a Mercedes 123, which is, I think, a cooler car. It has. I
remember that. I think the last time I rode in a 240 was when they were still kind of current, and it was when I was in sixth form, and there was a girl in my sixth form whose parents had one, and she once gave me a lift home in it, and I remember thinking that you could feel the body sort of shifting laterally on the rear axle.
Yes, you could.
It just felt like a really sloppy, old-fashioned car, which I'm sure it is.
Well, it's still a solid axle car, isn't it, the 240? And even the 7,
Yeah.
the 7 was a solid axle. Whereas the...
Yes, until later 960s, and they put a proper back end on it, sort of modern.
Yeah. But the whereas the W123 had IRS at the back end.
Yes.
So there.
Yeah.
Mind you,
so there.
I'm not saying...
Stick that in your Swedish pipe and smoke it.
I'm not for a second saying that the 123 is a taut body control car, because it is...
Yes, oh my God, it's like a GT3 RS, those things, God.
It's like the body language of Disney Pixar cars when you go into a corner a little hot with a car like a 123.
Yes.
Remember my brother saying, they're great, but like don't be overzealous, because they've got like 100 profile tyres and really soft suspension, and it will just tuck under. So whereas you go from that to a 124 series, and the 124 does feel significantly better, which you should, because it's a more modern version of it.
Yeah.
But I know.
It's the incremental nature of car evolution is, there are very few revolutions, but everything just gets slowly a little bit better, doesn't it? It's just
it's the nature of it.
It's the nature of the beast, mate.
Well, that's absolutely no insight in that remark. I'm sorry, it was a bit fatuous. But speaking of cars, or rather not speaking of cars, because I wanted to move over to Train Desk again.
Okay.
We've had so much reaction to last week's accidental train chat. Incredible. Nice thing. I'm going to give a particular shout out to a guy that we know. Well, I know anyway. I don't know if do you know Daniel Puddicombe, who is a car journalist but also a train journalist.
No, I don't.
And a listener to this podcast. Hello, Daniel.
I don't.
I should have known this. In fact, I almost gave him the heads up beforehand. I was like, warning, we've talked about trains on the podcast. He just said to us on Twitter, just a little note, that the replacement for the HST /Intercity 125 / Class 43 is actually the Class 800 /801 802.
Oh.
And not the Pendolino / Class 390.
There's a lot of slashing going on here.
There's a lot of slashing. There's a lot of different names. Those ones that so the ones I didn't realise this quite naively when I I'm going back and forth to London every so often from Bath. I thought those were some variation of the Pendolino that do that Great Western line, but they're not. They're Class 800s or 801s or 802s. I'm not quite sure what the difference is, but they're all basically Hitachi AT300s. Daniel says.
I quite like the fact that in the train chat responses, I've had quite a few on Twitter and Instagram about the trains being loaded up in Great Yarmouth. I had lots of links to local news of how of seeing the scenes of the trains doing their final journey in England.
Did you see the picture I put on the Patreon of those trains on the quayside at Great Yarmouth?
Yeah.
Someone, I think, had just sent a drone up to have a little nose around.
Yeah.
And they're just sitting on concrete with no rails. And I looked at it and went, is that okay? Is that good for trains to do that? And I suppose as long as you don't try and drive them, it's all right. But it just looked wrong somehow.
I think the concrete's going to come off worse there, surely.
Oh, yes, fair
But
point.
also, a few people messaged with these things and went, no sign of lino or hay bales anywhere. And actually, I'd totally forgotten that my idiotic solution had been mentioned of just run them until the rails run out and then just sort of skid them onto the train, and onto the boat. It'll be fine.
Well, thank you to everybody who got into. I can't even begin to start listing names of people. I don't believe we could talk about cars all day long and not get many messages, but as soon as we go a bit off piste and start talking about trains, it's like everybody decides to get in touch, which is great. Thank you for that. But a chap called Peter Carrasquillo or Squillo, I'm not sure, sorry Peter, however that's pronounced, he said, have you not seen a train ferry before? And there are trains that run onto ferries, and there are tracks embedded in the deck of the ferry.
Really?
But Peter, the reason I wanted to bring up Peter's message is also because lots of people said, they're putting those HSTs onto the boats with cranes, boringly. And Peter sent us a YouTube clip. He said, watching trains being loaded onto ships sounds somewhat interesting, but watching it being done poorly, even more so. And he sent us a YouTube clip of some people. I don't know where this is. It looks like an American train.
Oh.
It's being loaded in a crane, and then something goes horribly wrong and it gets dropped.
Oh, is it? Surely it breaks.
Yes, it visibly bends.
Oh no!
Which is also then somebody else. Let me find this. Someone who calls themselves Nurton NZ on Twitter. Just sent us a message saying loading trains on off ships does go wrong occasionally, and it's a sort of shot down the side of this looks like a British train. It's a Freightliner train, and again you can see what I presume is you sort of call part of the chassis of the train has got a massive kink in it.
Oh gosh, a kink.
It's been dropped.
Oh,
so
thank you
to everybody who sent us train info and lots of things about the HSTs as well. I'll read one of these. Harry Prince said that we were talking about the Intercity 125s and their retirement. He says, while most of them have left service on the main line, there are still a couple of sets running in the GWR fleet, and I see them often working trackside on the railway.
Oh.
Also, an interesting thing to note is Rail Adventure have started using some of the HST power cars to haul freight, which I didn't know. I wonder what that looks like.
Really?
Because then it won't match, will it? Quite interesting. So they can still be seen working on the network.
It's not about matching, is it? I don't know. Is the spec of the engine? Is it good enough for freight hauling?
Yeah. Well, I guess they're pretty grunty, aren't they? Also, quite a few people pointed out the original engines are really, really smoky and used to fill Paddington Station with a sort of thick fog of highly noxious fumes. But then they were replaced with some German-made engines more recently, and they're a bit more refined now.
I remember
they're still
that.
very powerful.
I remember going on school trips down to London and it arriving in King's Cross. And and the sound was actually quite scary when they properly bounced them off the limiter to get them up, to get them going.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're slipping the clutch madly to get away.
Yes.
You know when you're trying to do a hill start with a caravan on the back.
Something I saw the other day, which is it's a low level but somehow undignified thing to do in a car, which I saw somebody doing in a car park, is in an auto. Thinking you've put it back into drive and in fact you've only gone to neutral, and you get that big flare of revs with no movement, and it's very obvious what you've done.
I've done that recently. I did that really recently.
Oh, I mean we've all done it, but it's just when someone else does it, you get that kind of Schadenfreude where you go, glad that wasn't me, because that's sort of very slightly embarrassing.
Well, my dad used to I think, I don't know, ages ago on the podcast or on the videos of Smith and Stiff, I might have mentioned this, but my old man used to stick his auto into neutral when waiting in traffic.
Yes, I do that sometimes.
And he was convinced that it would reduce the wear on the auto box, and then but did so much research that took days. I think the net result of it was basically 50-50. Some people were adamant that it didn't, and other people were adamant that it did, and he was just confused. So he said, I was
going to say, next time I see your dad, I need to talk to him about this, because I'm always conflicted. It's like, now, wear and tear on the box, because it's slightly working against a load, and your brakes because you're holding the car
Yeah.
more than you would need to.
Is it using more fuel because the engine's under
Yeah.
load?
But then you've got to get down to detail, like, is it wearing out your gear selector more by constantly snicking it about more than you would otherwise?
Well,
Bob and I have got a chat on the horizon.
You and the dog need to talk. But I remember vividly the number of times we'd be chatting in traffic, and of course the traffic would start moving. Dad would totally forget what you just said, and then as the revs flared up, sometimes the knee-jerk reaction would be to slap it into D. So he would do a bit of a neutral slam, which would obviously reduce the wear even more because you're doing a neutral slam, aren't you then?
But then, did you ever do that? It's an absolutely knob-headed thing to do, but when you're like 17, 18, if you were in the passenger seat of a mate's car and they're at a T-junction waiting to pull out,
Yeah.
they're in a manual, they're in first, but they've got the clutch in ready to make a snappy getaway.
Yeah.
But they're looking right for traffic, so they're not looking towards the gear lever, and you can just hook it into neutral without them noticing.
Oh, gosh. Yeah.
So they go to set off and it's just that is such a dickhead thing to do. We used to do it all the time.
I remember what we used to do is we used to pull the handbrake up, so you'd slip the clutch in. So you'd have quite a bit of energy pulling away, and of course it would then just properly dog with worms drag the arse of the car along.
Yeah.
Mostly front wheel drives, of course. But we used to. One of my mates had a 205. With an early engine that was very clattery, the Talbot engine, I can't remember what it was. And he used to put his car in reverse with the handbrake fully clicked up. And the car would almost reverse over its back axle, it looked like. It was unbelievable, the lift it used to get. It used to go up as high as a pickup truck. We would just, you could almost hear, like, steel cables tweaking, like a suspension bridge about to break. You're like, don't do it! Stop doing it! Stop it! And of course, he was 17, he didn't give a shit. Bless it.
Well, you don't, do you?
That car was brilliant.
Again, this is completely related, but I just realised something else I jotted down that I keep mentioning to mention is that I think, talking of slightly inept driving, that you can't really trust people who drive in flip-flops.
No. Well, I mean, a manual with flip-flops is a terrible idea.
Terrible. And I saw this the other day. It was when we went to Devon, actually. So it's like 2 or 3 weeks ago. That from our hotel room window, you could see the driveway of the hotel. And this guy pulled in a last shape A-Class.
Yeah.
And he clearly was such a terrible driver that he saw that the driver's only single car width, because it's one way, and then it opened out into, sort of like herringbone parking spaces on either side. And so there wasn't a lot of room, and he clearly looked at this and just went, oh, that's too difficult. Even though there was clearly a space free, you could see there was a space, like 2 in. And he just clearly just went, oh, I can't be bothered to do that because I'm maintaining the steering wheel and using the gears. And so he just stopped at the edge of the driveway and sort of tucked in, but not enough. So he's still blocking the driveway. And I happened to be sitting in the hotel room window. And I was like, what is this bloke going to do now? Oh, he's getting out and he's walking off and he's leaving his car there because he can't be arsed. And as he walked off, I realised he'd got flip-flops on. And I just thought, that says it all, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's like you are in no way should you be allowed to drive a car because you're clearly shit at it.
Yeah.
And you're not dressed properly for it.
I've
then,
done
sure
it.
enough, someone else pulled into the drive and couldn't get through because he'd blocked the way, and it caused a small amount of chaos.
I've done it, and I'm not proud of it. It's not a great thing to do. But I don't know. Are we sure whether barefoot driving is legal? I don't think it's legal in the UK.
That's a good question. Is it specifically illegal? Because I mean, I was always warned that you shouldn't do it because it's that thing of not. You haven't got enough strength to press the brake hard enough. Well, you've got loads of feel, though, haven't you?
You've got too much feel.
Surely. Too much feel.
Too much feel.
I got into the car the other day wearing walking boots. Now, in a way, that's also something you shouldn't do, but it was just a short journey. I'd got walking boots on. I couldn't be bothered to change back into my other shoes, but that gives you much less feel than you've previously experienced in normal shoes. and it could be a bit hairy.
Well,
So I'm going to look at this up. Is it illegal to drive barefoot? This is from The Guardian. In spite of persistent myths, there are no laws against driving barefoot in any US state or in the UK.
oh,
Well,
okay.
and the RAC, let's have a look what the RAC have got to say about it. Go to the RAC website. I've got to wait 6 hours for them to turn up. That's a shame. There's a great deal of uncertainty surrounding whether or not it's illegal to drive barefoot in the UK, with numerous reasons cited as to why you're breaking the law if you do so. While these may be valid points, none of them are technically correct. Here is the law in a nutshell. It is not illegal to drive in the UK without shoes on, and the same applies for wearing flip-flops.
It's not illegal.
There is a catch, though.
Oh,
Apparently not, but there's a catch, it says. You can get behind the wheel of a vehicle barefoot or while wearing flip-flops, provided you are able to operate the controls safely. If you do so with wet feet, for example, you may be putting yourself, your passengers and other road users at risk by not being able to drive the car safely. This is illegal.
I see. Right. Well, okay. So I've learnt something. I've learnt something.
Well, I think we've all learned something there. Maybe not. Maybe lots of people are just going, well, duh.
Yeah,
But
our listeners are clever people, Rich. That we know.
I think what it would be illegal to do is what somebody of my acquaintance tried to do, which is drive with their hands operating the pedals and cause them to have accidents.
Oh, gosh. Just the worst.
Anyway, there we go. So, all right, well, that's today's learning, is that
That'll learn you.
it's not illegal to... But it is. I think flip-flops is worse than barefoot, because flip-flops, it's like they just get all sort of caught up in the pedals and things.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you when you transition from one pedal to the other, they can hook and sort of cause leverage off the big toe, and you get that pendulum effect. Do you know what I'm talking about? Am I not making any sense? But you know what I mean, don't you?
Pendulum effect.
Yeah, because like the base of the flip-flop comes off the base of your foot, and then it's dangling like a pendulum pinched between your big toe on the flip-floppy bit.
Oh.
And that bit can go behind the pedal while your feet goes on top of the pedal. I've actually had that.
I get you.
I'm saying this because I've had that. And that's why I don't do it anymore.
Sorry to go back to the train desk, but there is one other email I wanted to read out, which is from an Italian listener, Andrea Bracco, who says, ciao from Italy. Or ciao again from Italy.
Ciao.
He's written it
because
before.
Italians do trains, don't they? They're good at trains.
They do. Well, this is something that Andrea's touching on here. He says, in the latest episode, you mentioned the Pendolino train. Pendolino literally means small pendulum. And the reason is simple. It's designed to tilt to go faster around curves without the need of a dedicated rail network.
Brilliant.
The first one was the ETR 401 by Fiat Ferroviaria. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's a subsidiary of Fiat that built trains. Best Andy. So there we go.
There's a lot of car designers who've had involvement in trains. Maybe that's going to open another Pandora's box for a future Smith and Sniff and all that.
Yeah. Well, I remember being on a station in, I think, Switzerland, and being delighted and intrigued when, as the train pulled in, it had a massive Pininfarina badge on the front
Very cool
bit. Yeah.
That's funny you should say that, because I talked about Pininterest Farina the other week.
Yeah.
Well, do you know what it's served up for me recently? It's served up to me lots of imagery of in-car plants. That's a thing now. Did you know this? I don't know if it's an Instagram generation thing.
Like growing a plant? Green stuff?
Yes, living real plants inside cars, like dashboard-based cacti, in the recesses of MPVs and little K cars. So cacti living in cars and hanging vines, actually like little miniature hanging baskets, if you will, in the rear D-pillars. Stuff like that. And I'm like, it looks great, but what's the reality of this? Like, I mean, I live around some quite bumpy, curvy lanes. I'm just imagining a face full of soil and a cacti, a lap full of cacti if it all goes a bit Pete Tong. Can you imagine it? It sounds awful.
We should wrap this up.
Oh, okay, fine.
But before we do, I have three things to tell you. They are: one, Johnny has a solo YouTube channel. Rewind a bit and you can hear the made-up name for it. But the real one is, of course, called The Late Break Show. Lots of excellent videos on there about cars and people who love them. What have we got?
Well, we've got a big one. We've got the chat and the sort of afternoon out with Greg James, Radio 1's Greg James, chatting about his life in cars and his BMW M5 E34 that I helped him procure. And
sweet guy in a sweet car.
Exactly. And it was just a really great time. We had a very long chat and a drive, talking about childhood cars and some of the car geekiness that you might not know that he's really into his obscure stuff and his Alan Partridgey type of cars. So I hope you will listen / watch the video and enjoy it.
I will.
Many thankings.
Second thing I've got to tell you is, as we speak, Boring Car Trivia 4 has gone live. It's out at last, gosh. Thank God. We'll talk about it a bit more in depth next week, maybe. But for now, Boring Car Trivia 4 is on sale. Go to Amazon. It's available as a paperback or an ebook. We'll stick it in the merch shop as well at some point. But Boring Car Trivia 4 is on sale at last.
Yeah.
Please go and buy it. It's taken me ages. And the third thing I've got to tell you is that we all know Ray of Light by Madonna.
Yeah.
But you may not know that it's technically a cover version.
Is it?
Yes, weirdly it is, but not quite how you think. But it is based on a folk song by a duo called Curtis Muldoon, called Sephirin.
Gosh.
Which is why it has that in the lyrics. You know, Sephirin. Well, yeah. It's because it's essentially it's a sort of reimagining for the late 90s of a 70s folk song.
Well, next you're going to say Torn by Natalie Imbruglia as a cover version, and that's just going to upset me.
Well, it is, and I think she was sort of caught out by sort of not really fessing up to that.
Yeah, I think she was, but it's still great. So, Natalie, it's okay. I'm not angry. I'm not angry about it.
You're certainly not all out of faith, unlike Natalie herself, who apparently was. And lying naked on the floor, which is a really good way to get cold. So
do you know what? All I think about is how quickly you'll get cold there.
Well, because I always imagine it as a bathroom floor. I don't know why.
Me too.
It's just lying naked on the bathroom floor. You go, it's tiled, Natalie. You're going to get freezing down there. Come on, put a dressing gown on or something.
She'll have underfloor heating, Rich.
Oh, of course she will.
Which means it'll actually be quite cosy. And then you'll realise you'll go
really
for a nap, and then you'll wake up to your alarm going off and your phone going off, and they'll go, "Where are you? Supposed to be in this really important meeting." You go, "I'm absolutely naked on the floor. What's going on?"
Sorry. Yeah, I've just had underfloor heating put in. It's my God, it's so nice. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. Of course, underfloor heating. These pop stars. Anyway, well, that's enough of that. But we will, of course, do it all again next week. Until then, goodbye.
Bye, guys. Cheers. Bye.
You know just what to do. Like and subscribe and review. You know just what to do. Like and subscribe and review. You know just what to do. Like and subscribe and review.
If I go to Somerset and I don't see an Orion or a Sierra, I'll be pissed right off. because that breaks the spell. Breaks the spell.
But hang on, growing up in Somerset, weren't Orion and Sierra two of your friends?
Yes, they were. Orion and Sierra.
really hippie parents.
Orion.
Fucking ley lines.